are starting to get a little bit weaker here. We are breaking the downtrend. I might pull the trigger here soon on some small shares. Down 275 here, 276. I'm trying to get us our $500 play here. The S&P 500, got a lot to talk about it. Let's break it on down. As we already know, we do have our CPI data going on right now. And with our CPI data, we can see that the S&P 500 just had a very big drop. Now, I want to go over everything so every single person is feeling confident moving forward. So what we have at this moment, it says getting pumped up. Markets came through with a positive session on Wednesday, which was yesterday, with all three major indexes posting gains. It's been a shaky new year for stocks, hot off a strong 2023 as investors get their bearings in anticipation for the potential Federal Reserve rate cuts. All eyes are going to be on the CPI data, which have come on out. So looking ahead, fresh ahead on Thursday's fresh batch of inflation data could end up being a little too hot for market doves to handle. Economists polled by the Dow Jones expect that December CPI to have increased 3.2% year over year. Now, why this is so important is because this is what is going to decide, are we actually going to cut rates? You guys already know, I don't think we're going to be cutting rates as much as people think. They're saying that we are going to have 6 rate cuts in 2024. I think that is insane to even say. I would say we'd be lucky if we get 2. There's part of me that thinks that we might not get any. We will not mostly cut rates until this market turns and until this market starts falling. Because let's think about this. Jerome Powell has a job. What is Jerome Powell's job? His job is to bring down inflation. And if the market is at sky highs, why would we even cut rates to begin with? They would say there's no reason to cut rates. Guys, hey, no reason to cut rates. Markets are up high. Everything's going well. We aren't falling into a recession. Let's just hold rates as high as we possibly can, bring down inflation as quickly as we can when the market is right next to record highs. Usually they start cutting rates when things start getting ugly and they say, okay, we got to cut rates to bring the market back on up. So I don't think we're cutting rates anytime soon, especially with the S&P 500 at those record highs right now near 480. New beginning. Who's ready for a new era in the cryptocurrency world? The Security Exchange Commission on Wednesday, after a false alarm on Tuesday, approved changes to rules that will allow creation of Bitcoin on an ETF. That's going to be very exciting. That's going to be a lot of fun. The move was long expected and gives credibility to an asset that has been dismissed by many traditional financial world, including JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon. So what we have here at this time, traders, we got to break this thing on down. You guys can see right here, consumer prices rose 0.3% in December, higher than expected, pushing the annual rate to 3.4%. Prices that consumers pay for a variety of goods and services rose more than expected in December, according to the Labor Department measure on Thursday that shows inflation still holding a grip on the U.S. economy. The Consumer Price Index increased 0.3% for the month, higher than the 0.2% estimate, at a time when most economists and policymakers seem inflationary pressures easing. On a 12-month basis, the CPI closed 2023 up 3.4%. So let's really break down this market right now, team. Let's go over to the S&P 500 and understand what we have. So the S&P 500, we have this data and this market dropped back on down. Now, let's just take a second. When we see the S&P 500 have this big pullback and we see this S&P 500 have this big red candle, it scares a lot of traders. A lot of traders get nervous over this and they say, man, I did a call contract overnight. Man, I thought we were going to go up to record highs. Can we just take a second here? Let's go back to a larger time frame, a 5-minute time frame or so. Team, this pullback really is not that big. It is from 478 to 476.35. We are almost still at the highs we're at yesterday. We had a gap up overnight, and now this kind of just brought us right back down to where we were. The record high on the S&P 500 is right there. It's not like, this CPI data really affected it that much. When we take a look over on the S&P 500, the highest we have ever been is right here at that 480.40 mark. We are right next to that 480.40 mark. We are $3.70 away from that record high. So the S&P 500 at this time, even though that it is higher than expected CPI data, I think we are so close to that record high that we're going to continue to push up towards that record high. Remember, my target that I would like to see over on the S&P 500 is somewhere up above 490. I would like to see another, probably I'm going to say $15 over on the S&P 500 over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That's what I would like. Then yes, once we get closer to 500, I do think we get a very big drop. I don't think we get all the way up to 500. I think we get to like more 489, 491, 493, like something in that region. That's where I want to start looking for reversals. As of now, I don't want to look for reversals just yet. When we take a look over on why we were going to turn, 500 is most likely going to be impossible to break for a while. I'm just giving everyone that heads on up. 500 is not going to be easy to break. It's such a strong psychological number. Just like when we take a look over on NVDA, right? NVDA is being an absolute beast at this moment, but let's just take a look over on its daily chart really quickly. This daily chart over on NVDA, it's pretty wild when you guys think about it, right? NVDA has been absolutely insane, absolutely crazy. But what have you guys realized about every time it comes up to 500? It came up to 500 back in August. Then it fell all the way back on down towards 394. Came back up towards 500 in November. Fell all the way back on down towards 450. Came back up towards 500 in December. Fell back on down to 475, and then finally we broke out of 500. Most likely something similar is going to happen on that on the S&P 500. As we go up to 490, 493, we get a big pullback. Then maybe again like 6 months later, we get back up to 490, go a little higher, get near 500, get a big pullback. We are most likely to be able to break through 500. It's going to take time. It's going to take, I think, a lot of time to get above 500. You know, imagine the NVDA, but on a much bigger scale. Now, what's the big thing about NVDA here? NVDA also basically set itself up in like a ginormous ascending triangle pattern. Right? You guys can see we had NVDA going across the board at 500. Here's the 500 top resistance. And then we had this huge higher low uptrend that was just building and building and building and building and building until we got to the corner of the triangle. And once we got to the corner of the triangle, that's where we had our squeeze. And once we had our squeeze, that's where we have the breakout. That's where we have the rip. That's where we have the run. So you guys can see once we get these squeezes, we get these nice pops, these nice moves. You guys can see these squeezes, these nice pops, these nice moves. You guys see these squeezes, nice pop, nice move. These squeezing right here, nice pop, nice move. So we do like, you know, when we get these ascending triangle patterns, but it's going to have to hit resistance and fall and hit resistance and fall, then hit resistance and fall. So we can see right now the S&P 500 did get a pullback, but we are working ourselves already right back on up. We have seen NVDA now over the last 5 trading sessions go from 472 and spike all the way up to 548. Yes, guys, we are on about an $80 spike in the last 5 trading sessions. And you know what? I still think there's still juice left in the squeeze. There is. What do I would like to see? I would like to see 560 plus. I would like to see 570 plus. I think that NVDA is going to have, you know, one big more shebang type of day. Now, we've gone over this a good amount on kind of the thing that we have to worry about over on this play. And what's the number one thing that we have to worry about is obviously the RSI. The RSI traders, it's not going to lie. What we are going to see here is we will have a very big pullback in, I think, the upcoming weeks. Not right now. I don't think it's going to be today, but I'm going to let every single person know that we are going to have that very big pullback in the upcoming weeks. NVDA right now, we can already see a 72 on the RSI, and that's without this gap up that we have today. We had a 70 on the RSI right here. Guess what happened? We had a massive collapse. We had a 65 on the RSI right here. Guess what happened? Massive collapse. We had a 69 on the RSI right here. Guess what happened? Massive collapse. So you guys can see every time we become overbought above a 70 on the RSI, we do get a huge drop. But I do think this one's a little different, as in we have a lot of hype, we have a lot of momentum, everyone's going crazy on it. It's kind of tough to kind of stop this train. So I do think we might get 75 on the RSI, maybe an 80 on the RSI before we start turning. I would like to see this 575 plus before we start getting, you know, those put contracts and start looking for that reversal. NVDA is still the #1 top gainer in the stock market. It's where all eyes are at. Look at the SPY team starting to crack once again. SPY starting to crack. SPY starting to crack right here at this moment. We're starting to see that weakness, a little bit of a drop, and that could actually lead towards a nice red candle here coming on up. So you guys could see things are starting to get a little bit weaker here. Put contracts might be paying on out here pretty soon. Put contracts, 4,765. 5 contracts at this moment. This thing might start dropping. Let's see. Come on, staying alert on this play. I'm trying to get us, you know, our $500, guys. I'm trying to get us our $500 play here. We do have, again, SPX, it looks like, as like the main play that's going to get a nice dump. It looks like we're going to dump all the way back down to like the low. Guys, I'm giving it a chance. I'm jumping back in on SPX put contracts, 5 contracts here. We are breaking the downtrend. I want to see if this thing gets weak. So we are breaking the downtrend. I want to see if we get weak. I want to see if we fall apart. So I'm giving this one a chance. Let's see if we can crack this, start fading, start dropping, get a nice big red candle, and really just fall apart here. Goal is, again, over $500 on the day here. Guys, we're almost there, 570. Guys, boom. 650 bucks. 650 bucks right there, guys. We're still falling. Look at this candle. 4,746. Next possible dip buy. If you want to get a little risky, next potential dip buy. 4,746. Next potential dip. That does have a ton of support here, ton of support here, ton of support right here. There's the crack, still dropping, still getting weaker. There's that 4,746 mark. I might pull the trigger here soon on some small shares and see this thing, kind of pop back on up. Just try to make like $100, $200. That would be the goal. Just try to make a couple bucks here. Still going lower. Guys, pulling the trigger right here. Pulling the trigger on a call. Call contract, pulling the trigger, seeing if we can get a bounce. Gonna look to make like 200 bucks if I can. Let's see if we get a bounce play. If it keeps on falling, don't want to risk again taking any sort of unnecessary loss. I only got, again, 5 contracts on this play. It's trying to hold. It's trying to stay alive right here. The SPY did just have a nice pullback, and we're looking for that bounce back on up. So are we going to be able to get that dip buy, that bounce play, that move on up here, traders? It's still getting a little bit weaker. Gotta be careful on this. Don't want to take any sort of large loss. Fingers ready to sell. Guys starting to try to get that bounce back on up. We just had a massive sell-off, so I'm just trying to get a little bit of that bounce play back on up if we can. I want to make sure that this thing goes here. If this thing doesn't go here within the next, I'm going to say 60 seconds, I'm going to get out. If it doesn't spike within the next 60 seconds, I'm going to move on from it. But, I want to give it a chance. We just had a little bit of a sell-off. Gonna give this about 60 seconds to pop on up. Down 275, 275 here, 276. Getting weaker, guys, getting weaker. I'm getting out. I'm gonna get out here, stay green on the day. All right, I'm gonna get out, stay green, stay up 300 bucks on the day. I'm trying to get us our $500 play here. I'm jumping back in on SPX put contracts, 5 contracts here. So the S&P 500 at this time, we can already see a 72 on the RSI. Almost there, 570, guys, boom. It looks like we're gonna dump all the way back down to like the low.